Every house has the fragrance of its owner, has the markings of its owner. Do you know that you cannot be grateful with a but? I'm grateful, but. Can't be grateful with a but. Who knows the way that we take better than the one that created us? See, the reality is that sometimes the reason why we want things the way that we want them is because we want the glory. And what he's trying to do is take us out of the equation so that he can prepare us to allow glory to flow through us so that we give it back to him. The truth is, we're comfortable with what we do, and we despise the way that he does what he does, but it's everything for what we need in order to embody what we become. In order for us to embody the fullness of him and not be full of ourselves, this is the way that we have to go. Something so profound about the passage that says, you haven't been this way before. And we hear it over and over again. We read it all the time. But we really don't consider the profundity in that conversation. You've never been this way before. We say, yeah, I've been this way before. I know how to get there. Yeah, you did it the last time. You did it, and where are you now? You did it that way before, and where did it leave you? We have left him out of the equation, not understanding that you've never been this way before has nothing to necessarily do with direction, but it has everything to do with who we are. It's the fact that we choose our profanity over it.
Blessings, everybody. That was not supposed to cut off, but listen, we'll listen to it again. I enjoy those intros, and I take very seriously when the Father gives me a word to share. I believe that it has a lot of potency when he's speaking a thing because he's desiring to change our direction, to change our course. And I'm praying that you guys can hear me because it did switch over anyway. But yeah, one of the things I was getting ready to say at the end of that was I am amazed by the fact that we choose our profanity over the Father's profundity. In other words, he has a profound way of doing what he does, but we have a profane way when we don't understand his way of doing what we do, but we behold to the thing that we desire and the thing that we want so much that we don't even allow who he is to be expressed through us so that we can get to the space that he's calling us to. Listen, I'm so excited to be here with you guys this evening. I did have a mind to be on at one that was yesterday. And I tell people all the time that listen to me, I have my plans and then, there are his plans. Blessings, Elder. Absolutely. Thank you so much for letting me know that I am heard. Yeah. So anytime I say a thing that has to do with time, it's subject to change. It's just how I am thinking that the thing should go in the moment, but I'm okay with the transition. I'm okay with being flexible enough and bendable enough to move in another direction. And that's really where we have to be. We've got to be flexible enough and bendable enough for the Father, pliable enough for us to be put in the position that he's calling us to. Sometimes we're just too rigid. We're too rigid. We're in our own way. We're too rigid to even see or to hear or to move in the direction that he's calling us to. And this is the thing that prevents us from absolutely walking in promise. This is one of the greatest tricks of the adversary for us to fall in love with our way of doing things and to not be able to see what the Father is doing. Is one of the things that the Master, and we say we are followers of him, right? If we are followers, in other words, if we are following the way that he did a thing, he's explicitly showed us the direction of, I don't do anything but what I see my Father doing, and I don't say anything but what I hear my Father saying. That was a practice of his. It was something that he explicitly had a conversation about with the sons, in an open place. Like, this is the way to do this. Like, you should be so hungry for and so after the way that the Father's desire is directed that it becomes your desire. This is where that verse he gives us the desire of our heart comes from. But a lot of people, because we have our own idea about things, we think, oh, he's just supposed to give us what we desire. That's not what that verse says. It says he gives us the desires of our heart. That's very specific. But if we've only heard or seen him in the light of what we want, and in the light of who we've been told he is or what we made him to be, then we could never see him for who he is. And that's his desire, because the more we see him, the more we become. You hear what I'm saying? The more we see him, the more we become. And the more we become, the greater the experience is in the earth, because we are leaving that space where time is dictating. Time is no longer dictating the master, because a master has mastery over the time and has now stepped into eternity. And I promise you, things that are happening in the eternal space is not inhibited at all. It's not preventing you at all. You understand the ebb and flow. You understand directions. You understand how to take instructions. You've stepped into that place of maturation. And in maturation, you're not whining about what has to be done. You're not whining about what you need to do. You just recognize he is the authority. He is your father, and he knows better than you what is best for you in every season. We're going to talk about some things today. I don't have a plan to be on really, really long tonight. I'm not sure brother's going to make it tonight. He overextended himself, but he will be with us tomorrow. And I am excited about some of the things that the Father is sharing with us. This year was really different, and I shared with you guys yesterday that was a day later than I believed I should have been. But he expressed so clearly some things to me in the last couple of hours. And he, just like us becoming lords of the Sabbath, there is a recognition of the Sabbath, but there is an eternal rest. I'm not talking about after you're dead. There is an entering into the rest of Yah that is the seventh day, period, right? It's like seventh day perpetually. Like even when you get to 8, it's still 7, it's 7, just a continuation. And then that 8 is the new beginning, because the 7 said rest. So once you got to that rest, it was no longer go back to, recreating things all over again. It became a foundation for you to begin to step into a rest place. And so this is the place that we're stepping into, that we've stepped into actually, as we have crossed over. And you guys know how I feel about beginnings, how the Father expressed what beginnings look like for us. That is an opportunity. Beginnings are your opportunity to step into something new, to step into the beginning of things. And you know what happens with beginnings? With beginnings, there's always an ending. And I think these are the things that are so troublesome to immature sons, or to people that say they're believers, but really have never stepped into that realm of belief, because starting over is just not a thing that people want to do. But I'm telling you right now, even as you are growing, and even as you are ascending to new spaces, there is always a beginning. And the beginning you'll begin to love when you understand what the Father truly has for you. We're going to look at Exodus 11 and 12 today. And I've got quite a few other scriptures that I plan to look at today. But this thing about the becomers is not new for us. We've been talking about becoming for quite some time, but there's a time when you leave the conversation and you step into the actuation of the thing. And this is where we are. One of the verses that have been ringing in my spirit as I've been preparing for Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread was, let the wicked be wicked still, and let the righteous be righteous still. And I think we'll come to that shortly. But I think a lot of people confuse wicked with evil, and they're not the same thing. Although one of them could lend itself to becoming evil. Wicked could lend itself into becoming evil because it's not corrected. But wicked just means twisted. And I was tickled. I was in the kitchen cooking, and I kept hearing this phrase, y'all got the Father twisted. I could hear the Father saying, y'all got me twisted. That's what wicked means. It means a thing is twisted, and so it's the Father's desire for us to have clarity in this season and to step into this place of understanding on a level that we've never had before. But in order to do that, we have to participate with the plans of Yah. We've got to participate with what heaven has going on. We got to get out of our own way so that we can see his way. And we'll come back to that. We will. This is absolutely a reset. This year's a recall, a rising, This is the head of the year, and I know a lot of people under the religious industrial complex declare the head of the year at the end of last year, like September, October, which is the last, which is the Moed. Yeah, it's the last Moed of the year, but the new year doesn't come. The head of the year and the beginning of months doesn't happen until the spring. It doesn't happen until this time, which is Pesach. Um, this is not merely some religious conversation. I'm going to try to be really non formal as possible with some things I want to say, and I'm not sure how the Father wants to say it, but I'm open. This is not a religious holiday, nor is it a tradition of men. You know, this time absolutely belongs to Yah. And it's amazing because as you look in the Bible, you'll see the transition from where he declared, these are my feast days. And you'll hear on all kinds of media that people are saying these are this person or this nation's holiday, or this is this kind of people's holiday. And it's none of that. The Father said, these days belong to me. And I'm just thankful to be invited. I'm thankful to know to even show up to this day. Okay. This is the time that Abba, I believe, is set apart to communicate some really critical instructions to direct our year. It's a beginning, you know, and we know from what's written what beginnings look like. Like I said, they look like chaos at times. Before that beginning happens, that chaos is there. But we talked about the spiritual intelligence briefing yesterday, and that's what these are. These days are going to be spiritual intelligence briefings for us, a moment of encoded communication to the sons of Yah, those that have ears to hear and those that have eyes to see what the Spirit is saying to the body, right? This is an official alert. I believe it's an official alert from the throne room to the manifesting ones, you know, what he's calling the becomers, those that are rising in the frequency of Enoch's walk. You know, they are rising in the Elijah confrontation. They're getting this boldness and this grit and this courage that they've never had before, and rising in the Mashiach's example. You know, we're the sons that have been activated in time, and we've been confirmed by fire and then graduated into eternal realms. This is who we are. We talked about the Enochian breed yesterday. And once you understand your identity, you're no longer negotiating it. You're no longer pacifying the compromise, because everything that comes as a result of not identifying who you are is compromise. We're no longer camouflaging who we are. You understand what I'm saying? And when you think about that compromise, the person that I could think of is Abram. How he compromised some things because he didn't understand. He didn't have clarity, but he stopped asking, Father, what's next? I call it the what's next God syndrome, right? He stopped asking that. As long as he asked, Father, what's next, he had the clear understanding, he had clear direction, he had clear instructions, and he was able to walk that out. Understand, this is the guy that left his father's nativity, left the place where he was born, raised, expanded. You know, this was a wealthy place for him. You know what I'm saying? He left that space to go to somewhere that he didn't even have the directions for. So to get out there in the middle of a place that you're not even familiar with and not think that you're going to need to ask questions along the way, it just doesn't make sense. These are things that we're to learn from. And I would definitely much rather learn from the mistakes of others than to have to learn all that I need to know from my own mistakes. This is why the word is so important. This is why I'm constantly telling people, just read. If you don't understand it, just read it. Why? Because at the time you least expect it, that word's going to come up. Understand, the master did not have a whole lot of opportunities before he entered into that wilderness to utilize what he had heard. He didn't have a whole lot of opportunities. But in the moment that he came in contact with John, his cousin, at that water, and was baptized of John, he knew that that was what he was supposed to be doing. See, a lot of times we're trying to identify all of the things, and the Father's saying, I just need you to identify this thing right now. I need you to see this thing right now. We want to know all of the things, and that's where we get messed up, because we start clouding ourselves. We start getting in our brain. I was telling somebody I love, getting in our head. I was telling somebody I love, and I think I shared this with you guys yesterday. There's a definite difference between the brain and the mind. But what the Father shared with us yesterday was that there is a, let me see if I can pull that back up. I need to pull that back up because I am rehearsing this. I am rehearsing this myself. You hear what I'm saying? This is so important. To when you hear the Father say something, you got to go over that thing over and over again. It has to become a part of you. You got to connect the dots by identifying with things that are related to that to make it stick. And this is the thing. I've learned that there are irresponsible states of being, you know, and that people are not at large operating in mind, in their mind. They're operating in their brain. And what the brain is just the system that is following whatever the hardware on the system is dictating. So what the Father is desiring to get to, which is why the word says, let this mind be in you. You got to change the mind of the whole, that integral part of the computer in order for the operations of the computer, for the system to be working properly. And the reason why I'm identifying the brain as the system, or the computer maybe, is because the mind is really more like the brain of the computer, if this is making sense. I don't want to over speak it and then you don't get it. But there is a core part of the computer, and if the core is not properly set up, then what is being fed to the computer, it's either not going to compute or it's going to be corrupt or whatever. There has to be a system where that thing that is the integral part of that computer has it's clean and it is up to date. And now what the computer is receiving is something that is operable, something that's relevant, right? A lot of people are moving off of things that are no longer relevant. It's just no longer relevant. You know, Easter is no longer relevant. You know, Christmas is no longer relevant. These holidays are not relevant, not to those of us that are moving in relationship and desiring more of the Father. You know, I love that. Oh, Vicky told me earlier, she's finding now, after all these years we've been talking about this stuff, she's finding more of it online where people are talking about the origins of the holidays. That's why I don't share it anymore. It's enough of that out there. Y'all can go look at that and see. I mean, it's written in the word as well, but you can go look for yourself and find out why Easter bunnies and chickens and all of these different things, Easter eggs and all of that stuff. Yeah, why that's a thing. You know, I told you there's always a counterfeit for the real. And that's just a reality right now. The counterfeit exists, you know. And so we have to be able to identify between the things that are counterfeit, because that's the enemy's greatest play. It's two things that he'll do. He'll either make you believe that he doesn't exist. That's one side of the coin. Or if you believe that he exists, I'm talking about people that are not necessarily in the relationship properly. You'll think, oh, he's just an idiot. or you know, I don't know, you'll downplay it and not really understand it. It's an adversary. Satan is an adversary. Okay. And this adversary has been around for some time. So much so that genetically and DNA wise, some things have been passed down through generations. That's how strong these impressions are. They can be passed down, just like the word talks about the blessing being passed down. It talks also about, you know, there is the curse that is passed down to the third and fourth generation of those that hate the Father. You know, there is a visitation that is going to happen, and the question is, what kind of visitation are we setting up for generations? What does that visitation look like? We need to know what that looks like. And the only way that we can identify what it looks like is if we identify what we're becoming and how we're moving and how we're functioning. Blessings to all those that are on. Thank you so much for being on with us tonight. Like I said, I'm going to do my best not to be on very, very long. But I do want to share some things with you. I'm extremely excited about Pesach and Unleavened Bread 5785 and the rise of this Enochian breed that we've been talking about, because this breed don't bow to the beast. And we don't partner with Babylon. We don't partner with confusion. You understand what I'm saying? I was sharing something at the beginning of the broadcast, and I started talking about the fragrance of the house. You know, every house has a fragrance. And one of the things that the Father began to talk to me about was the marked house. And we know what happened in Exodus when they were given the instruction. We're going to read it. Exodus 11 and 12, we're going to read it. But what I mean by fragrance is that every house is expressing based on its owner. You know, the paint that's on the walls is an expression of the owner. The scent in the house is an expression of the owner. Just everything about the house, everything about the owner, I mean, is expressed in that house. The furniture is an expression of who that owner is. You know, it's amazing that we don't have this clarity that how we function. We talked about the mark before, but we're going to talk a little bit about it more. How we function is a representation of who we follow. How we function is a representation of what we believe. You know, every house is absolutely marked by its owner. And the imprint of that owner is based on who lives there. You know, this is the fact with Egypt as well. What happened in Egypt with the children of Israel when they came to that space where they were given an instruction. Now, you know, there were a lot of things that happened before that. Like I told you, when there's a beginning, there's chaos. And there was absolutely chaos before their new beginnings. They, at the beginning of Moshe coming back, were not even in acceptance of this because it brought such an impact in the environment. And, you know, you could become so beholden to your captivity that anything that shakes that up or brings a heavier blow, because, you know, the reality is when we are in the relationship with Yah and we understand that it is He that fights for us and it is He that gives us what we need, and we're not concerned about all the other stuff. We're just not concerned. But Moshe's presence in Egypt created some chaos. You know, we know this. They were so frustrated that they were like, listen, go get your own straw, make the brick with it. They were giving them the supplies to be the slaves that they needed them to be. And it got to the point where just at the breaking point of where it was a differentiation between the mind that they were in as slaves and the mind that they needed to be in as sons of Yah, who were getting ready to walk out a prophetic identity, that chaos came. Just at that breaking point. And so a lot of times, you know, we have to understand that we cannot give in or give up to the circumstance, because we are wanting what we want when we want it, but we're not understanding what we're supposed to be gaining in the process. And this is the ultimate thing. That process is what makes us who we need to be for that space of promise. Okay? I talked about the grateful and the but. It sounded funny, but it's real. You know, we look at the children of Israel and we are almost agitated with them because of how they're functioning. They saw all of these amazing things, you know, the fact that they came out of Egypt after being slaves was amazing. But you know what? Sometimes we are not thankful for what the Father is doing because we want more. We want more faster. We want more, and we're just not satisfied with what He's done. But the moment we start becoming grateful for what He's already done, that's when more will be revealed. That's when we'll be able to access or to acquisition the more. I share this all the time until we get the lesson classes still in session. And the reality of the matter is that a lot of people are still in class because they refuse to graduate. They don't want to take the test. And if they take the test, they keep flunking because they're not getting the lesson. They're not getting the lesson. Everything that we have processed through up until this point should have given us lesson for where we're going, should have given us lessons for future reference. Those lessons are future reference for some things. You know, if you went a direction on the road and you recognize, oh, they tore this whole street up, and every time I go this way, I'm delayed by 30 minutes. You're going to find another way to go. You're not going to continue to go that way unless it's the only way to go, right? But you're going to make an adjustment. You're going to do a detour. There's something else because you don't want to waste your time waiting 30 minutes because this road is torn up. We can go a whole nother way. We can, we don't have to do this way. But what happens is we keep getting in that space. And then when we get in that space, we complain. And he's saying, listen, I'm trying to take you away. And you're like, no, this is the way I know. This is the only way I go. And, then we're frustrated, right? So listen, we got to get out of our own way. This is a fact. We've got to get out of our own way. And that's almost, it sounds funny to people that feel like they're believers or they're sons. You're always going to need to be corrected, no matter how mature you are. And you're going to need some level of correction. And even the direction is a correction. I'm not saying that you're being scolded all the time. That's not the conversation. The conversation is you will need to be able to receive instruction because you don't know all of the ways to go. You just don't. And that passage of scripture really blessed me over the last couple of days. I was looking at this thing from a whole nother perspective. We hear this one all the time, that we've been around this mountain long enough. You've never been this way before. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because we're thinking of direction. That's surface though. We've been around this mountain long enough. Okay. That's a mindset. The mountain is a mindset. It's not just a location as far as direction. It's not just giving a geolocation. It's talking about a mental state of being. You have been in this mindset, this going around in circles for long enough. Now it's time to move into the promised place. That means that your mind has to be renewed so that I can get you there. Think about the children of Israel. When I'm just going to name a couple of instances where we can see that, yes, they came out of Egypt, but Egypt didn't come out of them, right? When we look at them, we see them complaining about the manna, what they named manna, this substance that came from the heavens. He literally fed them with a substance from the heavens. That wasn't enough. They were complaining about what he gave them and deeming it not enough. We see this same cycle over and over. It's a what do I want to call it? It's a contradiction in mankind. It's a contradiction. We saw the same thing in the garden, right? The Father said, this is what I've given you. You've got the tree of life. All the fruit in this garden you can eat from. That tree right there, don't eat from it, because the day that you eat of that tree, you're going to die. First of all, they didn't know what death was yet. So instead of just listening to what he said, which was don't eat of the tree, of course, at some point, I'm sure he would have explained maybe what death was. It was almost like rain with the ark, right? He's telling Noah, it's going to rain. Build this. Noah ain't even seen rain before. Maybe he saw it in the spirit. He could have. He could have, because there's a such thing as prophetic identity on things, right? Having a prophetic identity on the thing is a real thing. He could have seen it. He could have seen it before it happened, but nobody else even knew what rain was. So how they were hearing it in their ears was potentially not the way that he saw it or the way that he sensed it in his spirit, but he had an urgency to follow the instruction. But this is that contradiction in man where we want to challenge the thing. It's not good enough. We need more. We're not satisfied. But that details that there is something in us that has not yet matured. in the way of the relationship. Something has not matured. When we are not able to understand that there are seasons and there are times, right? And when we're not able to appreciate the season that we're in. When you think about this whole manna business, understand he gave them a substance that would fill them, that would satisfy them, so that on their journey they wouldn't be carrying around stuff that would be rotting and stinking. He took the burden off of them for having to need a refrigerator and carry a bunch of stuff and to be heavy with that stuff. Think about it. Food, depending on what you're eating, it can make you really lethargic. They needed to be agile, not lethargic, to do what they were doing. They needed to have an agility in that space, something that wasn't going to take all of the, dehydrate them. Let's say that. Something that wasn't going to put them in a dehydrated place. This was something that came from the heavens. So I'm sure that not only was it nourishing and substantial enough to give them what they needed, but it didn't take anything from them. It's a contradiction in man to be in that space. And this is the space that the Father desired to take the children of Israel from. This space where they were all about what they wanted. What is this Feast of Unleavened Bread all about? It's about changing the mind, changing the doctrine, whatever that instruction is, changing it, helping us understand what his instruction is. Because yes, he may have said something 5 years ago that he's now saying that was a tutor and a governor for where I'm taking you. And now you're trying to behold to the tutor and the governor. I think I was sharing this with Elder Vicky earlier. Many years ago, we would prepare for Pesach and Feast of Unleavened Bread 5 to 10 days before. Why? Because in the scripture, it shows that they would get the lamb. And there was a time frame before this feast came up that they were to get the lamb, right? But he hasn't had me do that in years. One of the things that was recognized is that the lamb was already sacrificed for us. So we can always honor that. That's not but what is necessary is the feast, right? We're not doing seders and all of that stuff. I'm not knocking at it. That's what you do, but it's beyond the seder. It's beyond the meal. It's way bigger than that. What the Father has done is way bigger than that. The reason why he wants us to acknowledge this time is way bigger than just sitting down and eating a bunch of food and drinking drinks and all. It's bigger than that. It's about us having an identity and an understanding of what his desire is for the year. It goes back to the season of things. We need the wisdom of every season, and we need to be appreciative of the season that we're in. That's that I'm grateful, but no, if you're grateful, but then you don't even get to enjoy the thing that he's given before you get to the next location. I'm grateful, but I wish we had some quail though. I'm grateful, but I remember when we were sitting at the flesh pots, and you know what came up to me regarding those flesh pots and the children of Israel? How about this? What if their desire to go back didn't have anything to do with wanting slavery over their freedom? I need you to think about this for a minute. Think about this for a minute, because we're only looking at things from the perspective that we've been taught or that we've been told. Okay? But I had never thought about this until today. Check this out. In kingdoms, rulership is according to the recognition of expressed power, right? And that recognition of that expressed power, that consistent place, puts person in the place of authority, right? It makes them an authority on a matter. So when a person identifies authority and power, that puts them in a position. So what if Israel was talking about going back to Egypt, not to go back as slaves, but you got to think about this. They already had the wealth of the Egyptians, and their God had already embarrassed all the gods of Egypt. So what if them recalling the flesh pots in that moment was not about what was going on when they were enslaved, but it was a recall of what was happening when they were in peace and in prosperity and in abundance when Joseph was alive. Because understand, the first thing that king said, listen, it's too many of them. We need to subdue them. We got to do something about this because they'll raise up and take over the kingdom. They'll partner with our adversaries. You understand what I'm saying? The lineage was king. Joseph was in the position of the viceroy of Egypt. He was second in command. The king said, listen, only in my throne am I greater than you. In other words, you operate as the king here, but I remain in the throne. It's the same way that the Father has things set up. You're going to operate as kings and priests in the earth, but I retain my seat. You follow what I'm saying? So what if them recalling the flesh pots wasn't a recall of the time in slavery, but a recall of the time in abundance and peace? Right? So now think about this. How is this mental space a problem for the sons of Yah, or for anybody claiming to be a son of Yah? That we have attained some things, we have achieved some things, we've acquisitioned some things, and we want to go back to the things that we've already engaged in because we understand how to operate from that place. But what if, think about this, we're going to read a little bit today. We're talking about the marked house today. What about this? What if, I got two scenarios here. We understand the fact that living beneath the privilege, we've heard that over and over again. You're living beneath your privilege. But a lot of times people base that on the physical side of things, the tangible side of things, or what you think you should possess. So I'm living beneath my privilege because my house ain't big enough, or I'm living beneath my privilege because my car is not big enough. But because of the refusal to see that the Father's given us everything, and that's a capital everything, that pertains to living the life of God's. I know it says living a godly life. What does godly mean? God-like. Everything that pertains to living the life of God's, a God-like life, a life that resembles his, a life that is pleasing to him, has been given. Right? So living beneath the privilege, what if he's saying, I'm taking you into a place of dominion and you don't know nothing about that because you've been living by your gifts, or you've been living by just your abilities. I spend time here and I get so much here. So this is a place because I feel like I'm being satisfied here, or something is being satisfied here, or there's an exchange that I'm familiar with here. Then this is the place that I have to keep going to. I had to deal with myself. I came out of a space. The year was new. It was some shifts that had taken place before the Gregorian calendar shifted. And it was great because it showed me, it introduced me into another world again. But then I got comfortable because when I moved again, I had the same expectation when I moved. Oh, I can just do that while I'm here. And the Father, he didn't open that up. He said, nah. And I'm sitting like, whoa, wait a minute. Can't I just do this? Because I got all these other things that's going on and I want to be able to sustain the things that I got going on. Listen, what if he's taken us to a place of dominion? And of course, we don't know nothing about that because we've been living by whatever the culture is saying is necessary. We've been living by our gifts. We've been living in exchange for time, for money. You don't know nothing about owning the field, but you felt so blessed to manage the field and be able to take free food home and a capped pay. So that's where you at. You like, listen, my pay is good. I get to take free food home because I manage the field. But what if he's trying to make you the owner of the field and the crops and all of that? But what does that look like? What does that process look like? Listen, I'm setting you up to be the owner of the hotel, and you want to go back to being a manager. That overtime was so good to you, but you don't have no time for your family, no personal time to just take care of yourself. But if you own the hotel or a chain of hotels, listen, if I can take you to the place that's on my mind, this is what the Father's saying. If I can take you to the place that's on my mind, you'd be able to represent me more accurately. Are you hearing what I'm saying? If I could take you to the place that's on my mind, I know you got stuff on your mind, and I don't mind you writing down the things that are on your mind. I am okay with that, because a lot of the times when we have these things that are on our mind, they have been things that have been whispered to us, things that we have identified with. You know, the Father might have told us some things, and so we're identifying with that, and we're imagining the place that He's calling us to. Great, but the timelines really belong to Him. And the reason why they do is because in maturation, we're less worried about the time and more worried about becoming. Uh-oh. Did you hear what I said? In maturity, in maturation, we're less worried about the time that it takes, or the time that is going to be processed, or all of that. We're more interested in the becoming part of it. This is why I said to you, wicked ain't evil. Where's that coming from? Because this is what the word says: let the wicked man forsake his ways, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return to me, that I might abundantly pardon him. Are you hearing what I'm saying? We got it twisted. We're thinking that it should go our way, and we're not understanding that the best way is His way. That's Isaiah 55. Let the wicked forsake his way. He said, forsake the twisted way. You're twisted. Forsake the twisting of yourself and allow yourself to come into alignment with what I'm saying. He said, and the unrighteous man, his thoughts. And so, the religious industrial complex might say, well, his thoughts are not our thoughts and his ways are not our ways. But you end it there, and it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. Let me pull that up for you. It goes beyond that. It doesn't stop there. Isaiah 55 specifically, I think I gave you 7 first, but it goes beyond that. I want to pull it up so I can read it to you. Let me read it to you. 7 says, let me see, let me pull it up. I'm going to pull it up, 7 through 9. Let's see here. Isaiah 55, 7 through 9. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, that He may have compassion on him, and to our God, for He will abundantly pardon. Then it says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares Yah. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. But then the scripture says, or the Bible says in the New Testament, let this mind be in you that was also in the Mashiach, which lends us to understand that we're to have the mind that the Mashiach had concerning His relationship with the Father, which takes us out of this space. Because if we forsake the twisted way and the thoughts that are not righteous, not in alignment with what the Father is saying, He says, let him return. That means there is a beginning point. There's an original space. And when we return, the Father has compassion on us and pardons us. You know, you step on somebody's foot, you say, excuse me, right? Pardon me. Pardon me. I didn't mean to overstep. I didn't mean to step on you, right? You don't keep doing that, because you understand boundaries and you understand space. But when you understand boundaries and you understand space, that leaves room for you to be able to identify what needs to be identified. We're in such a hurry. My grandbabies, Lord help us. We're in such a hurry. And the Father is saying, listen, there are some things that are already done. Some things that are already done. There's some things that are already done. And we're trying to do the thing that's done instead of just getting in the position that the Father is calling us to. Let's go to Exodus chapter 11. Give you guys a second. Let's go to Exodus chapter 11. Let's go to Exodus chapter 11. Let's go there. We're going to read a little bit today. I hope you are hearing what I'm saying. We're going to talk a little bit more about the marked house. And I got some things to give you guys so you can kind of identify where you are in this thing. Exodus chapter 11. We got to come out of that space of being so self-centered. That's what the culture encourages, is that self-centered thing. You know, that is the fruit of the beastly systems of the world. And we know all that's in the world is the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. Those are the things that are the highlights of the world. You got to have an opportunity to fill your eyes. Your eyes just never get tired of the thing that you long for. You know, lust of the eyes don't just mean somebody looking at porn. You know, that sounds funny, but I mean, people are so rigid and so shallow in their thinking. Lust of eyes means you don't get enough. It goes back to that thing of not being grateful. You want more. The lust of the eyes. It happened in the garden. You want more than what's been allotted to you in the time that has been allotted to you. The lust of the flesh is you want to satisfy your flesh. All of this stuff already happened in the garden. And the pride of life. If you just go back and look at that beginning, you look at that conversation and that exchange that happened in that garden, you should be able to place and identify some things in your life and understand where they're placed. Are they in alignment with what the Father is saying and doing? Or are they in alignment with the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life? Because we are somehow under the impression that Yah is going to make us choose between happiness and serving him. And that is so retarded. I couldn't even think of a better way to say that. That's so retarded. He's not trying to make us choose between happiness and serving him, because the matter of the fact is that he said at his right hand are pleasures evermore. He wants us to go beyond the space of happiness. He gave me a phrase many years ago, and I shared it with my children often, and I entertain it often myself, that happiness comes from your happenings. In other words, things that you are doing are either going to bring you happiness or they're going to put you in a space of regret or depression. Happiness comes from your happenings. So happiness is like at the lowest part of the totem pole. We are somehow under the impression that the Father wants us to choose between happiness and serving him. And that's ridiculous. He wants us to have it all. He really does. He wants us to be in the space where we have joy, where we have peace, where we have pleasures forever. But we got to align ourselves. He said it's at his right hand. That means we got to be attending to what it is that he's desiring in order to access the thing that is called pleasure. You know, he wants us to choose what he's choosing in every season. I have come to understand that I believe that he knows better than I do how to bless me. Right? And his question often is, why can't you just be happy for the riches that I've given in this season and look forward to the promise? See, we're talking from a place of defeat. We're often having dialogue with ourselves from the place of defeat because we want more than what he's already allotted in the season that we're in. But if we had the wisdom of the season, we would be able to appreciate where he's taking us. Look at Israel. Let's look at it. Genesis chapter 11. Thank you, baby. Thank you, babe. Genesis chapter 11. Let's go there. Exodus 11. We're going there. Are you all getting anything out of this? Are you understanding what I'm saying to you? Is this helping you identify your position or your posture in this hour? What it should look like? Because we're going to the place of promise. Now, I've said this before and it bears repeating again. The reality is this. You're going to go to the place of promise. Now, you got two people or two sides of this coin, two kinds of people. You got the people that are going to get all the way to the entrance of the gate and get scared and don't enter in and be rejected from going in. And then you got the people who are going to get in, but because they have no discipline and they have no desire to align themselves with the will of Yah, are going to get kicked out. It's the same situation over and over again. But are we going to be the sons that walk with the gods and understand that the Father is giving territory in this hour? He's given us the space of opportunity. I want to talk a little bit about opportunity too, because it was something that he was sharing with me the other day about opportunity. He's given us this space of opportunity to decide how we're going to align ourselves and what allegiances we're going to make. And all of that is going to determine how we are going to receive the promise. Are we going to receive it, or are we going to reject it? Are we going to get in it and be rejected from it? Exodus chapter 11. Let's do a little reading. This is the last plague, and it says here, 11:1, and Yah said unto Moshe, yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards, he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. This is the thing that, a lot of times we don't have this kind of clarity because we're so busy concerned about the fact that the pressure is a little bit more, or it feels like, we're under a heavier weight or whatever, because now we got a word. we got a response from heaven based on some things that we've been saying. And now it feels like the pressure is greater, right? Oh, I wonder if this is going to happen. I'm not sure. It looks like it's getting harder. And the Father's saying, you don't understand. I'm putting you in a position where how I'm setting you up is going to make the thing that you have been serving, the thing that you have been a slave to, is going to reject you altogether. This is what he told Moshe to do. He said, speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor and every woman of her neighbor jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And Yah gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And he changed the whole heart of the Egyptians. You know why? Because all of those things that happened in that land, all that chaos had hit that space. And of course, like I shared with you before there was that space in Goshen where they were not being affected, they were being affected by the first 3 or 4 plagues. They were being affected. The first couple of plagues, they saw the effects. But then the Father cut off the effect of that plague from them. That should have been enough for them to identify, wait a minute. We're not being affected by what's affecting other people. There are things that we should have an identification on and understand it. When we see, this was the way that other people took. That's their outcome. That wasn't my outcome. That could have been my outcome. We don't settle on the fact that the Father has been gracious to us, right? We don't settle for that. We get in that space where we see the blessing of Yah, we see the hand of Yah, and we see him moving, and we see what he's done, and then we're still looking for something more instead of just appreciating being in that moment right then and there. Being right there. Sure, he's given a promise, absolutely. And we can look forward to the promise. He gave me a word earlier today. He said the runner never runs looking behind him. He's looking towards the finish line. He's not looking at the ground in front of him. He's not looking behind him to see how close his competitors are. He's looking at the finish line and grateful for every step that's being taken, very conscious of the step. He's prepared for this moment. He understands the clothing that he needs to wear, the shoes. All of this is about being lightweight to get maximum speed. That's in that moment. But where I'm headed to, though, is the finish line. Where I'm headed to is the promise. So they plundered the Egyptians. So now before they even exit the space, the wealth has shifted. And this goes back to what I was talking to you about at the beginning. When do we ever identify the wealth that's been shifted to us? But we can never identify that wealth that's been shifted if we never have an appreciation for what we've been given. We can't appreciate it unless we understand what's really been given. A lot of times people are measuring what they have by the tangible things. I don't have enough gold. I don't have enough silver. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough this. I don't have enough that. And he's saying, yeah, but I spared you from this. I spared you from that. I spared you from the other. And then I'm giving you this, that, and that. I'm creating the foundation so that as I'm building you, you are able to sustain this. It says that the Father gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moshe was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants and in the sight of the people. So at this point, he had to go back and do some things and tangle with them a little bit, right? Go back and forth a little bit. You're going to have some time where there's kind of a going back and forth for some things. But in the end, the ultimate thing is that you remain in your position, that you stay the course that you've been given. He didn't go back to Egypt on some other stuff, let me, kind of blend how I served before with what the Father's calling me to do now. And if I could just merge those two things together, that's garden stuff. That's compromise. He went back and did exactly what the Father told him to do. He went back and followed the exact instruction. Did he have questions? Absolutely. Okay, Father, now these people didn't put a heavier burden on the people. Is this why you telling me to do this? This don't seem right. I don't know how they're going to respond to this. He was concerned about their response. And the Father said, keep going. Keep going. They had favor. Moshe received favor, and the people received favor in the sight of the Egyptians. It says here, Moshe said, thus saith Yah, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt. About midnight. That timing is something, ain't it? About midnight. He didn't say at midnight. He said about midnight. That means you got to have your stuff in order. When you get this instruction at about midnight, you don't wait till 11:45 to start preparing the thing that he said need to be prepared, and you need to be in the house. But this is why these steps in this process is so important, because there are suddenlies that are happening all around us. There are times that we got to step into something suddenly, that we're stepping out of something suddenly. And if we have not fully followed the instruction, then that's not going to work. It's going to be destruction. It says here that about midnight, I'm going to go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die. He said all. He didn't say just the Egyptians. He said, all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it anymore. Let me prove to you that it was everybody. Okay, look at this. Look at this. He gave them an instruction. Here is the preface for that instruction. He said this: there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it anymore. He's going to make a difference between his children and your enemies. He's going to make a difference between who we are and who everybody else is. He said, but against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue, against man or beast, that ye may know how that Yah doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. He said, I'm making a difference. This is why I'm giving you what to do. I'm giving you step by step. Now, he hasn't even said yet about the blood on the lintel yet. He gave them he started the difference with what they were going to possess. Y'all know one of my favorite verses in the whole world is, and let them have. That part of the verse just throw me all off. I just be all in a space over and let them have, because understanding that the Father's desire is not for us to be impoverished and not to be weak and not to be in this space of lack of influence is everything. But how you're going to be positioned for that influence is everything. I said it in the beginning. A lot of times, the real reason that people want to get to where they're going is because they want glory for themselves. They want to look like something. This is the Tower of Babel. Look, we're going to go make a name for ourselves. He said, listen, when he talked to Abraham, he said, I'm going to make your name great. That's different than I'm going to make a name for myself. That's completely different. Because if you make a name for yourself, you're going to have to sustain the name for yourself. But if Yah give you a name, if he makes your name great, can't nobody, including you, really take that away from you. Because at that point, you have identified a walk. You've identified a relationship that has positioned you only for the blessing of Yah. To understand where the blessing is. It's not in Everything that you want to do is in everything that he desires from you. Listen here. It says, and all these thy servants shall come down unto me and bow themselves unto me, saying, get thee out, and all the people that follow thee, and after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. This is what he's telling Pharaoh. This is what's going to happen. And the Lord said to Moshe, Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you. It says here, he's not going to hearken. He's not going to respond. He's not going to give in. That my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. Oh, we missed that part right there because we wanted the needle to move right now. We want everything right now. We live in a microwave generation. Everything got to happen now. We live in a McDonald's and a fast food generation. We could pull up in the line, get it in about 5 minutes if the line is clear. In the time that it would take us to cook it, we can get it shorter time. But it ain't the good food. It ain't the right food. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to adhere. He's not going to respond the way you think he's going to respond. But the reason that it's set up that way is because I'm setting up my wonders. I'm going to multiply my wonders in the land of Egypt. It's set up that way so that I can be seen. Not so you can be seen, but so that I can be seen. And when I say not so you can be seen, you are going to be seen. If he makes your name great, you're going to be seen. But you're not going to desire to be seen over him being known. Does that make sense? A lot of times we don't understand that some of the reason why the Father has moved us out of spaces and places is because we were in it to be known and he doesn't be known. So he said, well, if we're going to align ourselves together, if we're going to be in this relationship together, then I want to be known. I want you to be known for me. I want you to be known for what I've made you. I want there to be an acknowledgement and a recognition. Even if you don't say the word, somebody know, oh no, that's that's a son there. That's Yah's boy. That's Yah's girl there. Yeah, that's one of his favorites over there. You know how I know? Because when you see him coming, you see it on him. You know, the way the Father wanted to set the children of Israel up was for them to be the priests of nations, not for him to just identify just with that priesthood, the Aaronic priesthood. He wanted the whole nation to be a nation of kings and priests to regulate the world. And we know a nation that has taken that very seriously, even though they are not the nation that was what he had called for, the chosen. But they made themselves a name, and they make people all over the world respect that name. Something else. But it's a real thing. Let's go back to the reading. I ain't going to get stuck there today. It says here, and Moshe, I'm in verse 10, and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh. And Yah hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land. That's where people get stuck. You want the needle to move now. You want everything to happen now. And when it's not moving, you start questioning, Father, are you with me? Are you really with me? Do you really love me? And he's saying, look around you. Look at the things I've already done. Look at your life. Look at what I've delivered you from. Look at what I kept from overcoming you. Look at what I delivered, the potential damage that you could have incurred, but I delivered you from the potential of damage. He said, danger seen and unseen are things that we're being protected from every day. Let's go to chapter 12. It says, and Yah spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. I told y'all this is the first of the month. I don't care what nobody else say. I don't read what I read based on what people have told me. I read what I read based on what he's shown me. It's right here in the scripture. It doesn't take rocket science to see it. It shall be the first of month, the first month of the year to you. Now, I don't know how much clearer you need to get for that. Maybe I should give a Selah moment. Maybe there should be a Selah moment on that. This is the head of the year. Speak ye unto all the children or the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. This is what we were talking about earlier, Elder, and what I mentioned to you guys earlier. There was a time where we would 10 days on the 10th day, which is 4 days before Pesach and unleavened bread, 4 days before, we would start, doing some kind of recognition. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not something that he's led me to do, because the reality is the lamb has already been selected and the lamb has already been slain. So this provision of protection has already been made for us. It's just not the way that he's taken me. I wouldn't knock anybody that's doing it. We've done it before. But this is what I mean about being pliable and being flexible and being agile, because what the Father is saying is bigger than just getting stuck in a perpetual tradition of something. It's bigger than that. It said, and if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. In other words, if you need to get more or whatever, more or less, it needs to be in according to the number of the people that are going to be eaten. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. He gave very specific instructions. And this is where we get caught up when we start talking about the house that's marked. The house is marked based on who the instruction is coming from. That's how the house is marked. And we are now that house. We are now that house. The marking on the house is according to who we're hearing from. And that's going to determine whether there's protection or destruction. We got to be able to hear. And so what the Father's going to share with us in this week is all of the things that we need to identify with for this season of abundance, this season of getting to promise, this season of suddenlies, this season of acquisition, this season of becoming. He's given us everything that we need. There is no excuse. We just have to follow the instruction. He said, and they shall take of the blood. Now, here we go. We done left from Exodus 11, where he said, not a dog's tongue shall be wagged at. And he talked at any of the children of Israel. And he talked about how there was going to be a cry in Egypt that had never been heard before. He talked about the destruction, right? And this is the same setup that it is for the end of the age. Same setup. One will be in the field, one will be taken, and the other left. And a lot of people have gotten that backwards because they think the taken is some rapture, right? Oh no, we're going to be raptured. No. The land, this earth that he created, that was recreated for man, belongs to man. It's ours to manage. It's a gift. What he's going to take out of it is the thing that is evil, the thing that is twisted, the thing that refuses to straighten itself out, the thing that refuses to adhere. That's what he's going to take out of it. You say, well, how can you say that? Okay, well, what's the point of having a new heaven and a new earth and the new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven to make its abode on the earth? We got to think about these things. This thing is bigger than what we have identified with it. When we talk about the marked house, you must understand it lends itself to having the discussion again about the mark of the beast. But what is the mark of the beast? It's our agreement with systems of this world. That is the beast system. Babylon, what were they? They were all with one accord, all with one room, right? One was named for themselves. The other one was making a name for Yah, expressing the good works of Yah to people that were in a different language that they did not speak, right? Babylon was about confusing the language because they were speaking the same language. They were all going in the same direction. The imagination would not have been hindered. They would have been able to accomplish everything that they imagined because of their unity. But they wanted to make a name for themselves. I hope you guys are catching this. It says, and they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire. Oh, let me go back to 7. Exodus chapter 12, verse 7. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Not only did they have to see, unleavened bread was important for this fact. It didn't have time to rise. Between the time they had to prepare it and the time they had to eat it, there was no time for it to rise. Then he talked about bitter herbs, and y'all know I tell y'all all the time, bitters make you better. Things that are bitters make you better. Bitter melon, soursop, black seed oil, right? Bitters make you better. They deal with the digestion. They deal with all of the things that promote inflammation, right? He gave them what they needed to prepare them. You say, well, why was that important? Because he put them in a position to be able to follow his instruction. If he had told them, sit down, y'all go ahead and eat all the lamb you want, go ahead and eat all the vegetables you want, let that bread rise, y'all drink some milk in addition to that, then how would they have been in the position to properly execute what he told them to do after they ate? They literally had to gather their stuff, pull their, pull their clothes up on them, pull their clothes together. He said, gird your loins, right? Pull yourself together because you got to get out of here. They're pushing you out. You don't have time to be lethargic and falling asleep and doing a button. You got to get out of here. You're being born right now. So you need the agility to come through the canal. You need the agility to come through this womb into the wilderness. That don't sound like fun, though, do it? Coming out of the womb into the wilderness don't sound fun, but I promise you, it had a purpose. It says here, and ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. And that which remaineth of it until the morning, ye shall burn with fire. He said, don't, you're not going to carry nothing with you. And thus ye shall eat it with your loins girded. In other words, eat it prepared to get out of here. In other words, Elder Vicky and I had this thing. We talked about this years ago on a prayer call about what happens when war ensues. At the point war is ensued, I don't care if you at the mess hall, at the bathroom, I don't care if you sleep, I don't care where you are on that base, it's time to gird your loins. It's time to get moving. They literally had to eat, ready to run. He said, your shoes on your feet and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is Yah's Passover. This is what he has created. This is the same thing he said about the feast days are mine. He said, I have established this. This belongs to me. I have established this and set this up because there was a prophetic word that I gave to a man called Abraham. And I told him hundreds of years ago that you guys would be in captivity for over 400 years, for 400 years. And that at that 400 years, you were going to come out of your captivity. I was going to bring you out because I had promised a land that he got to a people that were going to come of him. We got to understand there's some promises that have been made to us as a result of where we come from. I do not take it for granted that a lot of what is on me is a result of my lineage. A lot of what I'm carrying is a result of what somebody else was unable to finish. And I'm looking at my children. They literally take up my parable. It's like I hear something come out of it and I'll be like, I said that already, or that's something I'm working on. And it's like, because they're connected to me, epigenetically, there is something that has been transferred to them. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Just by right of the lineage, something transferred to them. And now they're thinking about something that I think about. If you don't get it done, they're going to get it done. Oh, well, I'm going to get it done. I'm not going to disobey. I'm going to get it done. Look at this. It says here, and you'll eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It's Yah's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and I will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am Yah. And the blood shall be to you the mark, the marked house. There's something that he's desiring to mark us with, and it is glory. It is glorious. It is a mark that details who he is. But look at this. It said, it shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the mark, when I see the blood, when I see the thing that I commanded you to do, everything that in the way of destruction that is happening to Egypt, and anybody that's not following my instruction, because you remember he told them about the cattle because of the hail. He said, listen, take your cattle in. If you take your cattle in, you'll be fine. I think that might have been one of those plagues that would have got everybody. Anybody that had animals out there would have got, right? They didn't take the animals in. They disobeyed. Egypt disobeyed, and they lost a lot of animals that day. He said, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgment. I am Yah. But he said, but the blood shall be to you for a token upon the house where you are. We know the blood that works for us. We understand that. We don't neglect that. As often as we do it, we do, commemorate and celebrate. It's not just at this time, but this is bigger. This is bigger. This is about obedience across the board. This is about us being marked, and us being marked is a result of what we are following. That's what's marking us. What we follow is what's marking us. And so the results that we're getting are a result of what we're following, a result of what we're marked by. He said, when I see the blood where you are, what I gave you to do, when you follow that instruction, and when I see the instruction followed, because I'm going to see the blood, I'm going to pass over you. And the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. In other words, if you don't follow what I said do, you're going to be in the same position that they're going to be in tonight. Because listen, I'm doing this thing. Somebody say, he's doing this thing. Yah is doing this thing, I'm telling you. And the obedience that it requires may be uncomfortable. Listen, they had to eat in haste. They had to eat, gird their loins girded, ready to walk off, ready to run. You hear what I'm saying? It's like being at the starting line in a race. You ain't got time to bite your nails. You ain't got time to file your nails. You ain't got time to fix your clothes. You got to be ready to run. He said, and this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to Yah throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And in the first day there shall be a holy convocation. We can read the rest of this. I'm not going to hold you guys much longer. I got a lot I want to talk about in this portion here, and some places I want to go back to, and some places I want to fast forward to tomorrow. So I want to leave some space here for us to go, right? I want to leave some space for us to go. I want you to understand that 7 is so important. We're going to talk about it. But this unleavened bread, when we look in the scripture, and the master says to his disciples, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. You understand. Once you read the thing, you understand the connotation that these things have. This leaven was all about them being freed in their mind, freed in their soul from the captivity, that trauma that they had undergone. We are walking around here with trauma and captivity mindsets. When the Father is saying, I'm taking you to promise, you can't get there with that mindset. You got to let that thing go. I need you to consume. Everything about the world that we live in is about consumption. Everything about life is consumptive. Go back to the garden. He said, eat this, don't eat that. Still the same thing, the doctrine, right? The concept of what I'm going to hear in my ears, what I'm going to do. Who I'm listening to is going to dictate what I'm going to do, how I'm going to function. Consumption. He said, don't consume the leavened bread. Consume the unleavened for 7 days. It's relating to the doctrine again. Because when you get all the way over into another place, he says, I'm going to give you, I'm going to take you over there to something that the master says, because he went from talking about the unleavened to the leavened bread. He said, because the little leaven leavens the whole lump, but he's not concept of it being something negative. Whatever leaven is there, whatever doctrine is there, is going to permeate the whole of who you are. It's going to permeate the whole of who you are. And that's where the outcomes come from. Listen, I'm going to turn y'all loose. We've been on an hour and 20 minutes. I want to leave some for later. We got a lot to do here. Ultimately, what the Father's desire is for us to choose what he's choosing in every season. I just feel like he knows what's best to bless us. He's not trying to make us choose between being happy and him. He wants us to have it all. He really does. He really wants us to have it all. The marked house is a coded, deciphered space. It's a coded place that needs to be deciphered. There is a necessity to unlock the code that the Father is speaking to us when he's telling us to do something. But the only way we'll unlock it is through us walking it out, following the instruction. And when we talk about the marked house, what was the house of the Hebrews marked for? It was marked for deliverance. It was marked for deliverance, but you got to understand that the mark was a dominion force as much as a destructive force, because that mark separated them, made a difference between them and the Egyptians. It was about dominion for them, but it was about destruction for Egypt. Understand this: Yah will always disrupt or destroy that which doesn't serve his purpose. When we're children, he does this for us. But when we're matured, he expects us to do this. If you look at Abraham, the father didn't get rid of Ishmael for him. This was a decision that he made. And I have said this for years, and I don't have a problem repeating it, that we got to be very mindful that we don't allow the counterfeits that we have identified with to deny us the pleasure of the promise that he's calling us to. In our childlike state, the Father does these things for us. He moves things around. But in the maturation of sonship, he desires us to make decisions. Abraham had to make a decision. Yah disrupted something. He allowed the disruption to take place. Ishmael was making fun of Isaac. The woman, Ishmael's mother, was antagonizing Sarah. Sarah. Something had to change. That decision had to be made. Listen, the house was destined for the promise and endured what was seeming destruction after Joseph's death. It endured. Spiritual legacy is what took place. That house, based on the promise that the Father made to Abraham, was destined for the promise. But it endured what was seeming destruction. That captivity was the seeming destruction after Joseph's death. But it was prophesied that they would be there. And the reason that they got there was because of their inability to focus on, Hagar, to focus on what the Father's desire was. They got real comfortable in Goshen. But they had already been in promise. You got to realize this. I'm about to let you go right now. You got to realize this. They had already lived in the promise. Where they left because of famine was the promised place. So everybody, including Joseph, his brothers, his father, had lived in the promised place. Abraham had lived in the promised place. Isaac had lived in the promised place. This was destined. It was legacy. But they lost it because they got comfortable in Goshen during the famine. And we'll talk about famine and why those things happen tomorrow. But I appreciate you guys being on this evening. I pray that you were blessed by what was shared today, and that you understand that the house is marked, and how the house is marked is a decision that you make. We are in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, 5785, and we'll be on tomorrow. Same time, 6:45. We'll be on tomorrow. And I'm excited to have the conversation with you further. Listen, you're blessed, and don't forget it. And until tomorrow, you know what we say. The body is a meat. It's not a meat thing. It's a wheat thing. The body's not a meat.